But इस तरह का precedent तो था नहीं पाकिस्तान में. Plus there was no market data on how big the events market is. What is the volume of transactions? What is the number of tickets sold? There was zero data available when you started this.
And even when we started, just as an example, cash on delivery was 95% of all of our orders. Today we have zero cash on delivery.
95% to zero. You have zero cash on delivery. So the talent management is a separate business.
It's part of Ticketwala. So we've now got 8 people under us, 8 artists under us.
Including Hassan Rahim. So there was no income stream there. So forget the in-person thing. TK, you got a part-time job. You were able to solve that personally. But how did you guys create income for the business so that the business survives through this brief period and gets back on its feet when events are back on?
Entertainment was the first thing to go and the last thing to come back. So it was very scary in that regard because you had no end in sight.
Zayaan Bawany, how are you today?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for taking the time and coming out. आज मैं बहुत सारे सवाल हैं टिकट वाला के हवाले से. आई थिंक एक जो हम बात कर रहे थे, हमारे प्रोड्यूसर ने कहा कि हमें शहरियों को या पाकिस्तानियों को आसानी की आदत नहीं है. एंड हियर यू आर, यू ब्रॉट दिस प्लेटफॉर्म जिसने टिकट परचेसिंग को इतना आसान कर दिया है फॉर पीपल. तो वेयर डिड द आइडिया कम फ्रॉम कि यार आई वांट टू डेमोक्रेटाइज और मेक इट सुपर ईजी कि यार टिकट परचेसिंग एक जगह आसान तरीके से हो जाए?
Yes, so myself and my co-founders, we all studied abroad. So I was in the UK, Rehan was in the US, and then the other Zayaan, he was in Turkey. And so we had all seen this whole digitized world, right? So buying tickets over there was very seamless. There was no concept of going to a supermarket and buying tickets. Everything was online. And we were all in the event management space as well. So I'd been doing events in the UK myself, and I had used a lot of these different ticketing platforms. But when we moved back, actually also a little background, the three of us have been best friends since we were kids.
Oh, how convenient.
Yeah. So
how fun.
Zayaan's like my oldest friend, and then Rehan and I have also been best friends for many, many years. And so we wanted to do something together. We were all in the same space. And so we came back from uni and we saw that there was nothing like it over here. There was events happening, but people didn't know about those events. That was the biggest gap which we wanted to solve. Ticketing platforms existed, but they weren't focused on entertainment. And the events that they were focused on were only the large events. So they weren't actually giving access to all events. It was just the few big ones that happen every year. And so we wanted to change that. And so that's essentially how we got into it.
But इस तरह का precedent तो था नहीं पाकिस्तान में. Plus there was no market data on how big the events market is. What is the volume of transactions? What is the number of tickets sold? There was zero data available when you started this.
And to be honest,
you started this 2019.
Yeah, 2019.
Literally the year before COVID.
Yeah. So when we launched our MVP, it was 3 months before COVID.
3 months
so
before
it took us
COVID.
a while, obviously, to
fantastic
make the platform.
timing.
It was terrible.
So you're launching an events platform for physical events 3 months before all physical events shut down.
Basically.
How did that feel?
Horrible. And no one believed in it to begin with. Right? So when we first came back and we wanted
Why
to do
is
this,
that?
because like you said, there didn't seem to be a market. There was no data available. People were still, nothing was digitized at that time.
And this is 2019.
It's 2019. I mean, a lot has happened in the last few years.
Yeah.
Pakistan's digitization accelerated a lot, And even when we started, just as an example, cash on delivery was 95% of all of our orders. Today, we have zero cash on delivery. So things have changed a lot.
95% to zero. You have zero cash on delivery.
Zero at this point.
How many orders per day?
Per day, probably a few hundred, 200-300 orders.
So it's finally frictionless.
Yeah. So COVID really helped us
accelerate.
With that. Yeah.
But you had to survive COVID to get there.
We had to survive COVID. And, that was tough. We had to do a lot of different things. It wasn't just a pivot of the current model in Ticketwala. We had to open an entirely separate company to help sustain Ticketwala as well. So there's a lot of different things that we tried out during that time. And, we took the personal hits in terms of obviously no salaries and all of that stuff as well. So it's tough, but it was an incredible learning experience. And, so just as an example, right now when we had this whole India-Pakistan stuff that happened, it wasn't as scary as what would have been had we not gone through COVID. Because we knew we survived, we knew what we need to do. And in fact, it's actually pushed us a little more after that happened, because there was a little red alert that happened that, oh shit, something like this might happen again. And so, you better make sure you have your runway. And so going back into the finances and seeing, okay, what things should we change to be safe in case something like that does happen again. Because you grow, things evolve, your costs go up as well. So if something like COVID happened today, it would be very, very different. Our costs are 10x, 20x of what they were back then.
So let me come back a second. I want to first build on the founder base. 3 founders, ठीक है? You mentioned you're the CEO and the managing director. You've got a co-founder, Rehan, who looks after marketing. And you've got Zayaan, who looks after sort of operations and now talent.
Yeah.
First of all, 3 co-founders, isn't it a lot? मतलब for anyone trying to start a new business कि यार मैं दोस्तों के साथ शुरू करना चाह रहा हूँ, so इसमें 2 problems मुझे नज़र आती हैं. दोस्तों के साथ बिजनेस करना, everyone has a mixed feeling on that कि यार दोस्ती क्यों ख़राब करें, बातें आगे पीछे, whatever. So how did you manage the friendship? And then secondly, tell me how you decided the roles.
I think we naturally just fell into the roles. Okay, so I've always been good with the operational side of things, managing stuff, making sure things are organized, decent with finances. So I kind of just fell into that role. And in the beginning, the other Zayaan was looking at operations, which was more so when it came to the actual ticketing and the on-ground stuff as well. And I completely overtook that role eventually when we had to expand. And Rehan has always just been incredibly creative with everything that he does. And so, he just kind of automatically fell into the marketing role. And Zayaan now, so he's heading talent. In the beginning, we started managing Hassan Rahim, and he was the direct manager. And so he just took over that entire division, and, the entire thing is under him.
So the talent management is a separate business?
It's part of Ticketwala. So we've now got 8 people under us, 8 artists under us.
Including Hassan Rahim?
Including Hassan Rahim. And Zayaan manages the entire side.
And that is a revenue stream for you, a separate revenue stream.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And that's what sustains the events business, when the events is slow.
Yeah. But it's tricky because if events are not happening, then the artists are not performing
Correct.
either. So you might have brand deals, or you might have, let's say, performances that are happening outside of Pakistan, which might help sustain, or payments that come late or something.
Yeah.
But otherwise, if events go down, then they all kind of go down.
So now you kind of naturally fell into these 3 roles. Did you ever have a sit down where you kind of like chalked out rules of engagement, what the limits are, what happens if you guys have a disagreement on things? Because there's 3 people, so it's very simple hai na कि 2 people can take one side and the third one can kind of get sort of voted out.
Again, we didn't really formalize anything as such. We're going through that process now because we're going to be setting up our whole co internationally and doing all of that. So we're going to formalize everything. But it's never been too much of an issue. We've gelled well together. Obviously, there's been issues here and there. But like you said, it's pretty natural because usually it does end up being 2 on 1 or all 3 on the same side or so. So it fixes itself.
Is decision making unanimous?
Yeah. So
if one disagrees, it doesn't happen?
It really depends actually on the decision itself, how big of a decision it is. But usually we try and get everyone on the same page.
Give me an example when you didn't.
It could be small things, right? So, it could be, for example, let's even say the Instagram. Okay. Should there be a different one for every single city, or should there be just one for Pakistan? If you're expanding globally, should Pakistan's one become the global one? Or because you already have the following there? Or should you have a separate one for each country? So even decisions like that, we go into discussions and we all have our own viewpoints. But at the end, we have to come to one decision. And that can go either way, to be honest.
And isn't the custodian of that decision, so for example, the Instagram example, wouldn't that fall under the chief marketing person?
Yeah,
and wouldn't it be their final say? Or would it be like, nahi yaar, hum 3 mil ke is pe faisla karenge?
We usually do milke.
Okay.
But I would say if it's really undecided, then we're like, okay, it's your domain. You do it. So we come to an agreement at the end of it.
Have you ever disagreed and stayed in disagreement?
We've had fights, and it's tough because we're best friends. So our social circles are also the same, literally the
So
same.
when you fight about business, you guys
Yeah.
don't hang out outside of work?
We do. We still do, but it can get awkward. And for a bit, but because of that, we tend to sort it out. I
Who
don't
takes the
think
lead in sorting it out?
I always end up the bad guy. Okay, so I'm very direct about things. I'm very blunt about things, and I try and be just honest about how I'm feeling about it. And so that can sometimes come off as rude as well, to be honest. But otherwise, I feel just going to beat around the bush, then we're not going to end up sorting it out. And so usually, what ends up happening is that I will have to put all the thoughts out there and come off as as the bad guy, but it helps sorting it out as well.
So if you were starting or giving advice to someone starting a business, or if you were starting from scratch now, and let's say there's someone out there starting a business with 3 friends or 2 friends, one advice you would give them based on what you've learned so far, working with friends, because there's so much mixed reaction on this topic, right? A lot of people say never do business dealings with friends because you'll ruin the friendship. Versus, hey, only work with friends because they know you inside and out. That level of trust and respect and transparency is there, right? What is your guidance on this after what you've seen?
Both. Okay, honestly. So it's not as simple as it being either or. And it really depends on who the person is. So it's not just that I've worked with these two, I've also worked with other friends. So even right now, I've got 2 people from my direct social circle, very close, that are hired under Ticketwala. And I've got another, a couple of people earlier that were also part of it in some capacity, and we had to let go of. So the hard conversations are much harder. It's it's very difficult to be able to or to have to say those truths to the person that you're that close to, and try and not come off as that rude, right? Or try and not hurt the friendship. And that's happened a few times, in the past, like a couple of people that were very close to them, just not as close to anymore because of work. And so it's very tricky, it's not either or, it's both. And it really, really depends on whether you're actually able to work with that person or not. Do you gel together, and not just do you gel together, but do you actually complement each other? Because if you're going to clash, that's where the problem's going to come. Most of the time, it's an ego thing. Most of the time, it's just clashing. Most of the time, it's a difference in the way you operate. One person can be really organized, another person can be really messy or lazy about things. Both still excel at what they do, but it could just be a complete difference in how they do it. So it's quite complex, I would say.
How do you accept that difference?
Yeah. So again, if you're complementing each other in terms of how you operate, you can work around it. But if it's going to hinder your abilities, then you need to call it quits at some point.
So you need to figure out whether there is truly a complementary skill set. If I do this really, really well, regardless of how disorganized I might be, and I need this person to do this really well, and they do it, and it only works if the 2 of us do it together. Otherwise, it doesn't work. Or the 3 of us do it together. Otherwise, it doesn't work.
And like in our situation, all 3 of us are essential. Either one of us goes, and it would have a pretty big impact
So it's like a
on the
tripod.
company. Yeah. Like we said, we make the decisions together. We discuss everything together. Honestly, even right now, I'm based in Karachi. Zayaan's based in Lahore now, and Rehan is here half the year and in the US half the year. And we get on call for an hour, 2 hours almost every night, and we go through everything. All because especially when it comes down to, like, right now we're looking at potentially expanding globally as well, and so there's so many different considerations that we like to have those discussions, together, and make those decisions together. What moves do we make first or later? And because we're bootstrapped and we're very lean, those decisions are very important as well. We don't have that extra money to necessarily just blow. So it's a lot about what do we do first, and then this, and then this, and then this. And so we try and come to terms with that together, so we're on the same page.
Tell me about the COVID period, because one thing that I understand is, you come from sort of families that can afford and support your lifestyle. And if you go through a difficult patch, there's at least a cushion at the back, right? You went and you studied abroad, so COVID being a difficult period for the business, you had the cushion to land on, right? So there's two parts to this question. How would someone who doesn't have that cushion survive something as difficult as COVID based on your experience of surviving COVID? Because you had the cushion.
Yeah, so there's a few different things here. One of us had to get a part-time job to actually be able to sustain. I myself, after my father passed away, there's a lot of issues. So while the cushion was there in the sense that I don't have to pay rent, and the cars were there, I was not necessarily earning anything or didn't have too much in the bank or anything like that. So there was that, and so we still had to make money to survive somewhat, and not just for ourselves. Even if we were okay in that regard, like we would have been fine, but the company would have died. And so you still wanted to sustain the company, and we were not willing to let that go. Whether people believed in the vision itself or not, we did. And we knew that after COVID, that vision was only going to expand because people were starved for entertainment. And so we had to make it survive. So there was on one side, like us earning for ourselves to live. And on the other side, there was generating more revenue some way or another to make sure that Ticketwala survives. And so there were different things that we did for each of those things. So for example, one of us had to get a part-time job for themselves, but then part-time work on Ticketwala. The other two of us, we had we launched a marketing agency, and we started essentially taking on clients, and those clients would pay the bills, and then we were able to give those marketing services for free to Ticketwala. So we were able to earn ourselves from the marketing agency and also sustain Ticketwala from there. Now, if let's say you're in a completely different situation and you don't have any kind of cushion whatsoever, maybe you're even in school, I think that's where it becomes really important to have co-founders on board. Where you said that 3 might be too much, I think it's because there's 3 of us that we were able to get through it. So if it was 2, we'd be stretched too thin, or we wouldn't be able to focus. And if there was more than 3, I think it would be very difficult to get to any sort of conclusion when it comes to making decisions. And so for me, I like that 3 number. But again, it depends on the business itself. But at the same time, you also need to live, and for that you need to earn. And without that earning, things get very overbearing and stressful, and then you're not able to actually focus on the business itself. So it's important to pay yourself one way or another. So if that means doing a part-time job or whatever it is, you can always do this on the side. But you need to earn something. Don't pay yourself nothing. I mean, we did that for a long time, and honestly, after we started paying ourselves even a little bit, it took that a huge stress off. And so I think that's quite important. Whether it's coming from this business or something else, you need to earn something.
For yourself.
And that in itself is also going to have an impact on the business. Because if you're constantly worried about how you're going to, get food or rent or whatever it is, you're not going to be able to put that energy towards the business.
How did you guys earn for the business when the core business shut down? Because events, though, COVID mein bilkul hi khatam ho gaye the, right? And so there was no income stream there. So forget the in-person thing. You got a part-time job. You were able to solve that personally. But how did you guys create income for the business so that the business survives through this brief period and gets back on its feet when events are back on?
Yeah, so the scary part was that it wasn't brief. It was a pandemic, right? And we didn't know when it would end.
Right.
And entertainment was the first thing to go and the last thing to come back.
True.
So it was very scary in that regard because you had no end in sight. But what we did was a few different things. I mean, first and foremost, obviously, we scaled down. So we shut down our office. We let go of all our employees except for one person. And we were only paying that one person, not ourselves. And eventually we had to pivot the model itself while staying true to its vision. So we moved towards events happening online. So we noticed that everybody was in the same boat. No one was able to work or do anything. And so they were all moving online. That's when Zoom and, all that stuff. So people were doing makeup classes online, and people were doing, fitness classes online and whatnot. And so we noticed that in itself was an opportunity. That these people didn't have a way to market their events. Same way, like we're calling them events essentially. And they also didn't want to give you don't want to give your personal information, your bank account information, all of that publicly on social media either for registrations. And you don't want to deal with the registrations that might not be what you know how to do or what you're good at or what you want to focus on either. So we looked at that as events, and we listed them as events on our platform. So we started selling these online registrations. And to be honest, it was a very MVP version of itself, in the sense that we listed them as events, operated the exact same way as we would. And after buying a ticket, you didn't need a ticket. You still received it, but we would then send you the link, like a Zoom link, and it would be password protected or whatnot. And so that's how it was operating. And we ended up having our best months to date at that time.
And people were willing to pay for this.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was still happening. It was just we were able to aggregate it. And, we did pretty decent sale. I mean, obviously, in comparison to now, it's nothing. But where we were at pre-COVID, it was a lot. We were in a really, really bad position when COVID hit, like really bad. We had 150,000 rupees left. And we had blown our entire family and friends around really stupidly, in a nice office and whatnot. We were kids. We didn't know what we were doing. And I'm really glad we did that. I'm really glad we were stupid with the money. Now, when I look back, because it taught us a lot. But so we pivoted.
A founder of a new business, you can immediately tell whether this business will potentially survive or not based on how fancy the office is. Because if you're going to spend money on fancying up the office, your priorities are misguided. And in your case, it's fine. Like you were young, you didn't know, you didn't have mentors, you didn't have guidance.
Yeah.
But typically, the money should go in anything that generates revenue. Anything that does not generate revenue, why put the money towards it, right?
Yeah. And, so in a weird way, the office actually helped us as well, because people that were coming in for meetings, it gave off the impression that we were doing well. And it gave off some impression that they could trust us and that we would amplify their brand, and so it helped in.
So you should have a fancy office.
No, you definitely shouldn't. But I'm just saying, it also did kind of work for us in some way. And it was obviously the first thing we shut down, but it wasn't worth it, definitely. Right. But in hindsight, for the lesson we learned from it, it was very worth it.
Right.
And we learned from that office, in the sense that for the next 2 or 3 years, we worked from home. Even after things were back to normal, I think even after that, for another 1.5 years, we worked from my house. And like the team was at my house. Few people would come and visit us at the house for meetings. We just made a separate room. They say like this is startups with the garage. It's kind of similar to that. And so we learned that early. But so we pivoted the model, we downsized, and then we started the marketing agency. And the marketing agency, essentially, we wanted to do that, but we didn't have the money. We didn't have the capital this time around. And so we put, I think the total capital we ever injected was 10 lakhs into the marketing agency. And the way we did it was we hired everyone on part-time. So they were project-based as well. It wasn't like a fixed salary. And so we would take on marketing clients, and we were getting a big inflow of marketing clients because people like Ticketwala's marketing. So we would get those clients, we'd outsource it essentially and keep what was in the middle. And we did that for a while until we had enough clients to be able to bring those people on full time. And then we expanded. And we were then able to provide extra services to Ticketwala, which meant that through COVID, we were doubling down on our marketing efforts. And so we were everywhere. Our page was growing. We were making connections with all the event organizers. And at the same time, we were still operating over there, right? So we were reaching out to all the event organizers. And we essentially signed on every event organizer onto exclusivity during that time. Because the other players were essentially dead. They were just paused. And we were doubling down. And so everyone was seeing was in the entertainment market. And so that really played to our benefit because we knew at some point, things will go back to normal. And then we'll want to be on top. And we were able to give the marketing services. So we started performance marketing services for our clients and graphic design services for our clients and content writing services and so forth. And we focused on building out our technology in Ticketwala. We spent a lot of the money in that. So we had an entirely new platform once things launched because the first one was shit. It was so bad. It was just appallingly bad. And yeah, so once things reopened, we were in a good position. In fact, we even launched an e-learning platform.
Interesting.
So it was a third company that we opened because we didn't know when things were going to end. And so we saw that there was a lot of demand in e-learning and everything was online. And so we actually launched a separate company for that. And I say launched, we never ended up launching it. By the time things went back to normal, it wasn't worth it anymore. And that's when we were about to go live. So we launched one company, COVID hit, it basically died. And then we made another company. And then COVID opened. And then we never launched that one. And the one
so e-learning never got launched?
Never got launched. And the website is there, the content is there, the courses are recorded, we never launched it. And in fact, even the marketing agency right now is fully on pause. I haven't looked at it in 6 months or a year. No. Because it eventually, Ticketwala was always the end goal. And those were there to sustain. Marketing agency was making more money than Ticketwala was. For a while, even after COVID, for a while, it was making more money than Ticketwala was. But what we noticed was that when we would focus on both, neither would do so well. When we focused on the marketing, Ticketwala would start slumping. When we focused on Ticketwala, the marketing would start slumping. And by definition, it wasn't giving 100% to either. And so we eventually decided, okay, let's put this one on pause and run with Ticketwala, go all in. And since then, it just went.
So this gives me an example. The other day, I was having a chat with someone. They basically said, why would you focus on another business that is not your core business, right? And I was giving them two examples. I said, look, there are two there are two great companies in this world that did exactly that. The first is Porsche, builder of fantastic sports cars. As you can see, I love cars, so I know the story well. In the mid-90s, they almost went bankrupt, right? And they basically shut down. They were building all sorts of cars till the early 90s. In the mid-90s, they shut everything down and said, we're going to build two sports cars, the 911, and they introduced the Boxster. And the parts were shared. Like if you look at the door switches, if you look at the gear knob, the steering wheel, all the parts were shared because they were just building two cars just to cut costs, trim it down, and just kind of stop the bleeding. Early 2000s was the trend for the SUVs. The Jeep Cherokee led that trend. The Ford Explorer led that trend. BMW jumped into it. Toyota jumped into it. And so Porsche is kind of like, we can make a lot more money selling these SUVs. Let's jump into it. And all the purists were like, are you crazy? What the hell is a Porsche SUV? How can you make a Porsche SUV? That's just like, complete blasphemy. But they did. And they built one of the best SUVs, which is the Cayenne. In 2003-04, they launched it. It was not core to their business. It had nothing to do with sports cars. But the amount of money they made on the SUVs, they put back into sports cars. And today their sports car range is probably the best in the market. But only happened because they built SUVs, which is not core to their business. The same thing Amazon did. Because Amazon was losing money every single year on its e-commerce platform, but was funding it through AWS. The web service, which they realized we need a web service. Why not sell it to the market? And so the reason I bring this up is because I noticed that in your business, to survive or to make the core business survive at a difficult time or when it was losing money, you opened another revenue stream that was not necessarily core to your business. It was supportive. It was adjacent. It's not like you suddenly went into the lumberjack business and was selling trees, But I think that that's something that a lot of founders, business operators forget. They're like, why should I do that when that's not the core to this? Well, do it because it's adjacent. Do it because it'll make you money so that you can be true to your core and
exactly.
fund the core when the time is right.
Exactly.
And I think that's a lesson that is often overlooked. You have to make money. If you can't raise money from friends and family, if you can't raise debt, you can't raise equity, find an adjacent business that's not too far off to plug that cash flow gap in to keep your core alive.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I mean, even a lot of the large companies have done that, like you mentioned. Even Airbnb, I think they sold cereal or something, right? So
They did in the beginning.
Yeah. So I mean, you have to do that to survive. It's all about
Surviving.
surviving. It
It's
really
about
is.
waking up the next day to fight another day.
Yeah, honestly. And I think as long as you survive, over time, you will also grow. There might be some periods of stagnant growth, but then there's going to be periods of just rapid growth,
Yeah.
And it kind of comes out of nowhere, but it comes from surviving. If you don't
Yeah.
survive,
You don't see it.
You don't see it.
Yeah.
And if you are true to the vision, if you actually believe in what you're doing, then yeah, you need to put all your
Then
balls in that.
you will survive.
Yeah, you will survive. You'll do what you need to, And for us, it was eventually about putting all the balls in that one court.
Yeah.
But we also diversified.
Yeah.
So it was all balls in terms of Ticketwala, but then we diversified the revenue streams.
Right.
And I think what was key for us was localizing Ticketwala. So when we actually first built our platform, we thought that it would be similar to what was going on internationally. So firstly, we didn't think it would be 95% cash on delivery. We didn't think there'd be so much hesitance, but we were also naive. And also we thought that people would upload their own events, for example. So we initially as kids thought, we would make this website and people are going to come, list their own events, sell their tickets, money is going to fall in our accounts. We'll automatically pay them out through the payment partners. Because things are much, much easier and very different abroad. And it wasn't anything like that. Still till today, one person has ever made their own event on the site. And we've made every single other one for them because that's what they want. They want you to do it for them. Internationally, there's, I did a ton of events in the UK, for example, worked with all the larger ticketing platforms. And so one, obviously that gave me experience in knowing how the platform worked, but it also skewed my perception because over there, I never spoke to anyone from the platform, not an email, not on text, not on chat, nothing. I listed my own events. I sold tickets and did the marketing myself. The money came into my bank account and that was it. And that over and over again. Over here, not like that at all. Eventually, we removed the create event functionality from the website. Now, after 6 years, organizers themselves are saying, it would be great if we could do it ourselves. So now we're bringing that back. And so we had to localize the product. That was very important. We localized the technology itself. We had to build out an entire system that worked without internet. That was our biggest USP, even to date, because internet doesn't work. It doesn't work, especially in these
digital
large
company
gatherings.
in a country where the internet doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
So how did you build the product without internet?
We had to get creative with it, to figure out, I'm not going to give away my trade secrets, but, we had to get creative with, it had to do everything that I could do online, but offline. So that meant you had to still be able to scan your tickets. You had to still be able to get all the customer information. It still had to sync the data between all the different devices. Otherwise, people would be coming in different queues. And again, so you've worked on Karachi Eid, right? We've worked on Karachi Eid. In fact, I think we even did together that 1 year.
Correct.
And so Karachi Eid is when we built out the system. So for a long time, we didn't approach them. We didn't approach any of the larger organizers because we weren't ready. We knew that once we do, we don't ever want to lose them. And because you only really get that one shot, especially in the beginning. Maybe down the line, if you mess up somewhere, they'll give you another chance, but not in the beginning. And so we needed to build this offline system. And so we did, We built it, but again, it was a very MVP version of it. So initially, it wasn't syncing between devices. Okay, so we were literally manually swapping laptops between the queues every few minutes,
Right.
so that people that were going into different queues and had figured out that if you go into this one and then this one, it'll scan, then they were getting caught. And then, eventually we were doing it through USBs where we were transferring the data. Then we were doing it through LAN cables. Then, we were doing it through routers. Now we've got a mobile app that runs entirely offline for scanning that we're just about done with. It hasn't released yet. And so there's constant iterations, that will keep coming. But we had to localize. Had we not localized with that offline system, you wouldn't be able to cater to these larger events. Because none of them have internet. Every year they put, Karachi, for example, puts up a new tower, and it never works.
True.
And if you don't have internet, it's just going to lag.
Yeah.
And so people will get in, that fake tickets problem. So you're better off just selling physical tickets.
True.
And so that's what everyone is facing with the other platforms.
And you were able to resolve this.
We were able to resolve them. So we took over a lot of market share because of that as well. But for it, we had to localize. We have an entire private events feature right now because a lot of events are hush-hush, right? All these raves and stuff that happen there, hush-hush, right? So there's a private events feature. Those events don't show publicly on the website.
So how did they show up?
You have to have the unique link. And if you have the unique link, it's also password protected. And after it's password protected, you place an order, but you can't actually pay for it because first it's gonna go for request to the event organizer. They're gonna filter the attendees based on whatever information you fill out. And if they accept you, you'll get a payment link. Otherwise, they'll reject you and you can't buy.
Interesting.
So we've really had to go deep into that, even on the technology side, to build our USP. Apart from the brand and all of that being our USP as well.
Interesting. Okay, so I've asked you a lot about sort of the structure, the history of the founders. I now want to get into what I love is the numbers side of it, right? Give me an overview of the event landscape in Pakistan, by type, by city, by attendance.
So Karachi, Lahore, Islamabad, where most of it is happening.
You would say 80%?
95.
95%?
Yeah, 95%.
You guys don't do kabaddi events like in mid-Punjab?
Not yet. We want to.
वो जो मौत का कुआं चल रहा होता है, you guys don't have those?
Not yet, unfortunately. But we've done events in Hunza as well. I mean,
there's polo up there, I think,
there's
in
stuff
Hunza.
happening. And that's the whole thing. So they are, let's say, 5-10 years behind where Karachi or Islamabad is. And Karachi or Islamabad are now way ahead of where they were when we first started.
So KLI is, let's say, 95%. That's crazy.
Maybe I would argue that under 100 events were being ticketed online when we first started.
Less than 100?
Yeah, less than
5-6 years ago.
Yeah. Okay, like there was nothing that was being done online. And the ones that were, they were all larger events.
And how many events were ticketed online in 2024?
So we did, I think, about 1,500 plus.
1,500 events.
Yeah, at least.
The 90% of which were in Karachi, Lahore, Islamabad.
Yeah, of which half are at Karachi.
Okay, so let's take that as the base, right? So 1,500, and the first 6 months of 2025, what is the number so far?
I think we're close to that.
So you've done 1,500 already in 6 months?
Almost done, probably close to 1,000.
So let's say you're doing 1,000, so you're probably going to hit about 2,000, 2,500 by the end of the because the events usually happen towards the winter months anyways, right? Because of the summer.
Yeah, the market is growing exponentially. It's absolutely insane to see it. In fact, we were looking at the numbers yesterday, and so our summers are much drier than the winters. Right? The winters is the peak months.
Makes sense. Weather.
And that's because of lack of venues in Pakistan, unfortunately. But we were looking at the numbers, and what we did from April till September, so the whole summer, last year, we've done 1.5 times that, close to 2 times that in May this year.
Just in May?
Just in May, which is also peak summer. We're breaking records right now
so there's
in terms
demand.
of heat, right?
So there is built up demand. There's a shortage of venues with the right ventilation or the right environment because it's hot. So let me break this down. Let's say you're running a 2000 event year, 2025 possibly, right? Of the 2000 events, 90% are in Karachi, Lahore, Islamabad. So 1800 are in these three, 200 are probably kind of scattered, right?
Yeah.
Of these 1800 events, give me the categories that they fall under.
So you've got your pop-up markets, okay?
Pop-up markets.
Yeah, so
Okay.
you Mashin, your Common, Locate, those type of things. You've got your Karachi Eats and Soul Fest, which are festivals, you know. So both of these kind of fall under festivals and markets. That's how we categorize it. But they're kind of different. One is more shopping and food-based, the other one is food and concert-based. And obviously much more mass market, right? Like Soul Fest, Karachi, much, much bigger. And I guess your Hum Masala family festival and stuff also falls somewhat within this, but at a much lower range in terms of ticket price.
So these, I would put these as food festivals.
Yeah, festivals and markets, right? So they can have concerts as part of them. They can have food and shopping.
And within that, there's different demographics. So there's an SCCA version, there's an SCCB, and an SCC, let's say C.
Yeah.
Right? So Hum Masala would be, let's say, a mid-tier to lower tier.
Yeah.
But a Karachi Eat would be a higher tier.
Yeah.
The masala's ticket price is how much?
So the price is also, right? So Hum Masala is like 200, 250.
And the
And
Karachi
then
Eat
Karachi
is...
Eats, I think, like it used to be like 450 now. I think it's like 800 or something like that.
So it's almost four times more.
Yeah.
Got it. So you've got the food festivals. You've got the pop-up markets. This, would you say, food-driven events? So let's call them food-driven events. Would you say are the majority of your events?
No, but a decent portion. So the most are concerts.
So of the 1800, how many would you say are concerts?
I think so. If you're including the fact that these also have concerts as part of them, then I would argue
Standalone
that
concerts.
Standalone, half. 40%.
So of the 1800 standalone concerts where I'm literally just going for an artist to listen or experience an artist. Forget the food. Forget the fact that there's food stalls outside and all that, because the food is not the primary driver. Right?
Probably around 40.
So 40% of the 2000.
Yeah, 30-40% for sure, yeah. And then you've got...
So you've got about 600 to 800 events every year that are music events.
Yeah. And that's standalone.
Standalone music. And these are single artist music events or these are multi-artist music events?
I'm including both in this. Single is very few, to be honest, just because, so right now, let's say you have a Sajad Ali that's happening, then you had Kavish that happened a little while ago. So
is it difficult to pull a crowd for a single artist?
Depends on the artist. Really, really depends.
Might not be hard for, let's say, an Ali
Sajad
Zafar.
Ali sold out a week in advance.
Really?
Kavish sold out, I think, within 24 to 48 hours.
Hassan Rahim?
That's the most ridiculous sale I've ever seen as Kavish.
Why is that?
The demand was insane. I mean, we actually had a DDoS attack on us as soon as it went live. Twice or 3 times. It was crazy.
So you've got the single artist events. These two have taken off. Most of the events are multi-artist events, though, on average.
Yeah.
Right. And of your, let's say, 2000 events, about 30%, let's say 600 to 800 events are music events. Non-music events are, where would you put these raves, these secret raves that happen in different parts of different cities?
Much less. Much less.
So you would put them at what? Let's say 100 a year?
Yeah.
There's 100 of those a year.
50.
50 of those a year. Across all 3 cities evenly distributed, or is Karachi?
Yeah,
or
that
Lahore?
we are ticketing, I would say. 50 decent ones that are happening. 50 to 100, a year. But that's not all of our private events. Those are the raves, like you mentioned.
Right.
Other private events could be anything.
Like?
It could be workshops. It could be a private comedy show. It could be
Really?
anything, really. Sometimes people come to us and say, "Yeah, we're having a wedding event and, we need the tickets done for me."
For a wedding?
Yeah, so
What do you
maybe
mean?
they just want the registrations. Like, we want people to scan in, because if we're calling Rahat Fateh Ali, we don't want randoms to show up.
Okay, got it.
That sure also happens.
Okay, so they're using you as
It's
a tech
rare.
service.
Yeah, so that happens. It's rare.
Right.
But that happens. essentially the private thing is if you want to be able to filter your attendees, if you
Right.
want to hide it from the public, for whatever reason.
So to me, that becomes a second service offering,
Yeah.
right? That's more of a, I want to document and track my event attendance, which is a private event. I've got my private guest list. I'm doing everything. Just you become my tech partner in that. Okay, got it. So you've got your music. Within music, you've got sort of the concerts. You've got a few raves. Does that cover music entirely? Is there anything else missing in music?
Yeah, so yeah, I would say that covers most.
So now
of it.
let's music aside.
Yeah.
Let's leave music aside. We've got food. The food festivals are the Soul Fest. So it's basically food with the music or
This
Karachi.
is food as well. So the festivals and markets, that would have been food.
That's pure food.
Yeah,
Is there
I
any
don't think
variety in
there's-
food or variation in food you're seeing?
Outside
these are-
of this, not really.
the food is pretty standard.
Yeah, it's pretty standard.
Where
They've got
people
their
come
pop-up
in with-
markets and stalls.
Got it.
And, yeah.
So now you've got food and music. What about sports?
Sports is okay. So sports is not too much. Okay. We do some MMA and boxing and kickboxing events here and there.
Did that
The
take
crowd
off?
is-
Because they were bringing that in with a big
Yeah,
bang.
so they
in-
keep every year it happens now. There's a couple coming up right now as well, and it grows every year. It grows, and it used to be very small. They didn't used to sell much at all. Now it's definitely on the up.
What
As
is
are
when
other
you say it's on the up? Give me a ballpark number. How many tickets do you sell for MMA?
Yeah.
10,000?
No.
1,000?
Yeah, like 1,000.
That's not bad.
Yeah. It's not much,
Soul
but
Fest,
yeah,
how many do you
so-
sell?
So we don't do Soul Fest.
You do Karachi.
We do Karachi Eid. I think there's. I don't know why they don't do Soul Fest. Every year we speak about it, and every year it doesn't. They end up giving it to
We'll
someone
connect
else. Yeah. we have a direct line for some reason they don't. I think it's got something to do with competition and
Right, okay.
data and
Yeah,
something. But Karachi Eat does quite a lot of tickets, tens of thousands.
Tens of thousands. So you would say that of all of your events, the biggest would be Karachi Eid
In terms of number of tickets.
in terms of number of tickets that you sell.
But but the size of it, and they've also been doing it for 10 plus years, so they're very, very established.
What
And they
about-
still do majority of the sales at the gate.
What about religious events?
We don't get many religious events. I think
Why
there's
not? You
some,
make a lot of money in that.
yeah, but I think there's some sort of clash. I think they also don't want to be part of it just because we have
ticketing.
all these other events.
So what? It's
on
tickets.
there.
I mean, if let's say I put the headline aside, you're offering a platform that allows for a transaction to happen. If there's a big religious event happening where I want to track attendees
I'd
and I
be
want
okay with it for sure.
you would principally be okay running a religious
yeah,
event.
I am quite religious.
Hmm.
You
You don't think it would contradict the ethos of the platform that someone might say, यार एक तरफ तो आप rave के tickets बेच रहे हो, दूसरी तरफ आप एक
I think
बयान के tickets
that's
बेच
the
रहे
whole
हो.
issue. Though,
what's
right?
the problem
I
with
think that's people. It's people are coming and talking. I honestly don't mind.
Because there's a
We're
lot of money
here-
in religion.
Yeah, it's not even about that. I think it's just that we want to promote all of events and entertainment and whatnot, the whole industry as a whole, whether that's comedy or music or religious or whatever it may be. We're okay with that.
So so you've got food and music which take up the bulk. I would say that you would say safely that's about 70% of your events.
Yeah,
More?
and then you've got theater.
Okay, how is theater doing?
So
Because
that's
theater is
picking up.
really.
Yeah, it's picking up.
I
So
thought theater had died a very slow death.
it had. So it was quite slow in the beginning.
Right.
And now some of our biggest sales are theater.
And when you say theater, this specifically a certain type of producer, certain type of play, or is it just theater in general?
So there's a lot more shows happening to begin with. And so there's a lot more variety. And I think, so here's what Ticketwala's done, right? And I think, obviously I'm biased, but I don't want to boast, but we've played a huge role in shaping the industry, the entertainment industry, and giving access to people. So the issue before, for the most part, was that people didn't know about what was going on. And now they do. Now they come to our website to discover all the different things that are happening. And I think Pakistanis in general are just starved for entertainment. There's not much to do here other than going, to the restaurant. And, even cinema is dying here because they remove Bollywood. So for the mass market, they're not
That's
very
too expensive
interested.
for the mass
And
market.
Yeah, and that. So there's not much to do. And so we're giving that avenue over here. And so now everybody enjoys different things. which is why we cater to all different things as well, right? And part of that is also theater. So a lot of, especially the older crowd, they are into theater.
When you say older, what?
So I mean, so I think 40 plus.
Oh, so you're calling
40,
me
50,
old now, huh?
you know. Yeah. I mean, considering that our main audience is
Right.
half that.
Oh, your main
Right.
audience is in their 20s?
Yeah, 18 to
If I was to pick the
35.
center point of the median of your distribution of
University, right?
data, university students,
Yeah, university students, maybe late 20s, you know, so under 20, 30.
and that's what they like food, they like music, obviously.
Exactly.
And then the older crowd then goes towards theater. And who goes to comedy, and how much of it is comedy?
As well. That was
is
my
comedy
other thing.
big?
Yeah, comedy is really picking up. So comedy is a mixed crowd. You know,
So that's
you've got
old
the
and
younger,
young.
you've got the older, you've got different, you've got like comedy which is set for like families, like there's family only type comedy shows. Then there's your stags allowed. You know, you've got the dirty comedy. You've got different types of it, and so it caters to all different types of people as well. And so comedy is really, really picking up as well.
Interesting. So now I'm looking at a landscape. Ticketwala has been able to sort of bring to the forefront all types of events that are happening in the major cities. The majority of those events are food driven and music driven. Then there's supportive events coming in the form of theater, in the form of comedy, in the form of pop-ups. What else is there that you're seeing that surprised you? Shows. So for example, dog show. I know there's a whole dog show scene that happens. I know there's a flower and plant show. I know there's car shows that happen. I know there's bikes that do stuff. I know Park Wheels has kind of taken on that whole car domain.
Yeah, there's a lot of car stuff happening, man.
But that's a very Awami kind of car thing. And then there's the smaller, more exclusive kind of car things that happen. But do shows take up a big part of this, or they're not using your platform?
So a lot of them are free.
The shows are, because they're sponsor driven.
Yeah, a lot of them are free, and we want to promote those as well. So we do reach out. I actually want to get all the expo events, and I like I said, I want to give access to everything. If we don't make money from it, that's fine.
Right.
You know, if it's free, it's free.
You want to build the awareness around events taking place.
Yeah, in general, right? And I know those same customers that are going to come and see this are also going to potentially buy something else as well.
Right.
So it's fine. I'll make my money on it somewhere anyway. But it's always been about giving access to the people and shaping the industry, and that's how we stood out.
Right.
That's been our ethos the entire time. Ticketing, other ticketing platforms were around for 7 years before us.
Right.
You know, but they're all almost dead now at this point.
So it's democratizing access to events around you. Basically,
Yeah.
you anyone can find out what's happening unless it's a private
Yeah,
event.
small event, big event, whatever it is.
Anything on your platform that surprised you that wow, this is happening? Like, was there any event or anything unusual that was ticketed through your platform?
Yeah, for some reason I don't know why it's not coming to mind. I thought about this a few weeks ago though. But what is actually coming up a lot right now is automotive events. So there's rallies happening, there's Park Wheels type shows happening.
And you know, the thing is, they've been happening for years.
Yeah, they've been happening for years.
I've been a part of a lot of them, but they were never sort of in the forefront.
Exactly.
Only the community knew about it.
Exactly. And there's drift events happening, you know, which are very cool. And so there's this Drift Fest, and very, very cool, man. So there's all sorts of stuff that's going on in that sector. And so what's interesting about the industry as a whole, in all of events and entertainment, it's a very copycat industry. Okay, so what happens is that, let's say there was a pop-up market, you know, and it'll do well, and another one will say, yo, these guys did well, you know what, I'm also going to do one, and then another one and another one. They're all doing well. Oh, we're also going to do it, and then it just, you know, explodes. And so that's been happening, you know, sector to sector to sector over time. You know, so it first started happening with concerts, then it started happening with these pop-up markets, then it started happening with comedy, then it started happening now more recently with theater, you know, and now with the cars and automotive side of things. So it just keeps happening. And what we truly want to see now and what we want to open up is outside of Karachi, Lahore, Islamabad. Because there's so many people, there's so much disposable income, there's, like I said again, a starvation of entertainment in, you know, your Faisalabad, Gujranwala, Multan, Hyderabad, you know, those, you know, people from Pindi are coming, you know, to these events in, let's say, in Islamabad all the time, right? And so you want to start doing events in those regions as well. And I think that that area is so untapped. It's so untapped. And one, you just need a few IPs that are going to happen there, and then those markets are going to open up like crazy.
What would you say after doing all of these events is your favorite event location in Karachi, Lahore, and Islamabad?
I can't say. I don't want to say. I think I'm going to come under fire from the other.
That's why I want you to say it.
But no, I think it depends on the venue. It depends on the event itself.
For the music event with 1,000 people, best location in Karachi.
I like Andalusian is great. Moin Khan is great. Arts Council is great. You know, I think they can all hold the capacity. Creek Club, we've done. We actually did
Creek Club?
Yeah, so we did our own event at Creek Club. We did Hassan Rahim's Notanki tour. So that was first of its kind, and we did that at Creek Club. So that's cool, you know. And so it really depends on the crowd you're trying to pull.
10,000 people food festival. Where would you do it?
Yeah, so most recently Moin Khan and Andalusian. Okay. Benazir Bhutto Park is where Karachi Eat happens. But I think that's huge. You know, that's a different scale altogether comparatively. But otherwise, I think Andalusian and Moin Khan are very good.
And Lahore and Islamabad?
Yeah, Lahore and Islamabad. So you've got Al-Hamra, which is very cool. I think we did Hassan's Unfiltered shows over there. Very, very nice venue. And a lot of the stuff is happening there now. So I like that a lot. There's this Q High Street, which is just brand new right now. They've been doing events every single weekend. A lot of the big events, Mashins happen there, Park Wheels has happened there, PG Bazaars happened there. You know, a lot of these large, well-known events are all taking place there. So that's a new one that's opened up. Islamabad, I'm blanking for some reason. I have to look at the list.
Any restrictions or hindrances from local, provincial, federal governments when you're trying to scale a business like this? Because events essentially involves the government.
Yeah.
You've got the security that you need to take care of. You have to take care of traffic. You have to take care of the logistics. You have to take care of trash. There's electricity. Like there's a lot of public service and works that are involved in this. And I know you're just a ticketing partner, but when you see events of this scale happen, do you see friction in this area? And what is the best way to eliminate that friction?
You unfortunately can't. So the system is just, it's corrupt, man. And
when you say corrupt, what do you mean?
What I mean is basically, so one, you need obviously your no objection certificates.
Of course.
Right? And getting those is always a huge pain.
Really?
It's always a huge pain. Yeah, because what we've seen happen time and time again is they will delay it and delay it and delay it. You can do months and months until the last moment, and then they will ask for an astronomical amount.
What is a number that is astronomical?
I mean, they'll
10
ask
million?
they'll ask you for millions for it. It really depends on the size of the event, the name of the event, whatever it is. And it's up to whatever they feel like doing. Sometimes they'll give you the NOC and then they'll cancel it. And then they'll ask for money on the day. You know, they'll come, then some officials will come and they want their tickets. You know, could be anyone. And so there's a lot of these types of issues that happen all throughout. And it's a big hindrance. It's a huge hindrance.
And getting an NOC, you have to pay under the table.
Depends on where, also, like the location. Some of the people are fine, some of the people are not.
So what people are fine?
I mean, like area-wise. So I personally, I'm not sure.
But this is something you don't have to deal with. You just hear about it.
Yeah, I hear about it a lot. You know, we work with event managers as well. So we do not event management, but the project management. Since we've worked with all the event managers and all the different people in the industry, could be for artworks, could be for the actual setup. We know who's good at what, who's the best at what, in which domain. And so because of that, we partner with different people and then we manage the project oversight. And so I'm personally not obviously dealing with getting the NOCs and doing all of that stuff. So I wouldn't really be able to tell you, but I know it happens, and it happens very, very often. And because of that, it holds back the industry very significantly.
What about the other public services stuff? Have you seen issues around that when you're sort of supporting events? Or heard about traffic, lighting, electricity, waste management, parking?
I mean, look at what happens when PSL happens. The whole city shuts down.
Shouldn't happen that way.
It really shouldn't happen. So
it's a failure of the state in providing the security.
People going to these events, like even people have stopped going to PSL because of this.
Because it's annoying.
Because it's annoying. Literally because it's annoying.
Yeah.
So yes, it makes a huge, huge difference. And you have international artists who don't want to come here because of the safety. For that reason, for the safety reasons and all that stuff.
Do you foresee an event with a big headline artist ever coming to Pakistan?
Yeah, soon. Very soon. It was supposed to happen. I cannot say who. It was supposed to happen a few months ago. Wasn't able to.
Security?
But it will. It will happen very soon. And that once that happens, the market will change forever.
But we don't have the venues for it.
This is the whole issue.
What
that's
comes
the biggest issue.
first, the artist or the venue,
so
the chicken or the egg?
you have to create...
The same thing is the problem with movies, man. The problem is there's not enough theaters. Theaters that you charge 150, 200. Like basically you need to cater to the hum masala crowd where they're 150, 200 rupees. Because for them to get to the venue with the family and then get back, it's expensive.
Yeah.
And unless we create that kind of venue experience for the masses, this is not going to scale. Yeah. One other area that you didn't touch on, which I was surprised, you didn't mention anything about fashion or fashion-related events. Is there no market for that?
So fashion would still come under the markets because you've
got... like runway fashion events, like there's no...
We don't do too much of that because it's not public in that sense, right? So it's mostly invite only, very exclusive in that sense. And so... they don't really delve into this kind of stuff to begin with.
And what about expos?
Expos, we do a few, not all. Most are free. And at this point, so there's two considerations, right? One, I mean, we want to do all events. If it's free, it's free. But then on the other hand, if we are charging for tickets, then sometimes it needs to make commercial sense also.
True.
And so... sometimes you don't do it for that reason.
Interesting. Where do you see Ticketwala in the next 5 years?
Ideally global. So we're looking at going global this year, max by next year. So we're doing.
When you say global, which is your next market?
US. US for sure.
Why the US? It's a lofty goal. Why not start something regional?
Okay, so there's a lot. So here's the thing. So we have our talent side of things, right? And the artist management is a very, very big part of what we do at Ticketwala.
Right.
In fact, we're just actually doing a reveal right now of Source Talent by Ticketwala. We're formalizing the entire artist management arm. And, we've expanded from 1 artist to now 8 artists, and we're going to be adding a couple more.
Who are the artists you manage?
So there's Hassan Rahim, there's Jani, there's Fuzik, there's Shariar, who's a producer, there's Abdullah Kusumbi, who's a producer, Tahaji, who we recently just signed. And we do a few things for a few other people as well. And then there's Musti as well. So we're going to be adding a couple more now. But that the artist side it's a long term, it's a very big play. Okay, so one, we want to help the entire industry grow, right? So Hassan also started working with us, I think in the beginning when he was charging like 80 or 100,000 rupees or something. It was quite small at that time, and we've grown with him. Like we've piggybacked off of him, and he's also grown with us and so forth.
So he would charge 80,000 for an event
at that time, yeah.
And today it is,
I think it's like 3 million.
That's crazy. And how long?
Yeah, COVID. you know, COVID.
So 5 years.
Yeah, maybe after post-COVID, in fact, even like end of COVID, post-COVID, because the
Right.
events weren't really happening in COVID, so it have to be after that. And we're working with a lot of record labels. You know, so you're actually seeing Sony is in Pakistan now, Warner is here, Universal is here, D36 is here, Mass Appeal is here, and all of our artists at this point are signed to one of those labels. You know, so we're working with these larger labels abroad, internationally as well, and we are also trying to get our artists to perform internationally. So Hassan did a global tour, a world tour last year. He'll probably be doing another one this year, and that was, I think he did US, UK, did Ireland as well. I think
Targeting
there was
primarily the
Korea,
Pakistani
Bangladesh.
diaspora.
Sorry,
Di-
Desi.
The Desi
Desi.
diaspora.
So all of these. So here's the key thing, right? So all our Pakistani artists have more listeners in India than they do in Pakistan.
Surprising.
All of them.
And what would be what would be a concert attendee size be for Hassan Rahim in the US or Ireland or wherever?
At this point,
1,000, 2,000?
yeah.
Majority Indian?
Yeah, mixed.
Mix.
But majority, I would say, would still probably be Indian.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so
And the average ticket for that event would be what, $50? Dollars?
Yeah, roughly around that. You know, so there's a big market there. And so one, we want to obviously make our artists go global, and obviously they become bigger as artists as a whole. And then we want to also be able to bring other international artists to Pakistan, so exposure both ways.
So you're going to take a Pakistan-specific approach for Ticketwala, so targeting Pakistani or South Asian diaspora with local talent moving abroad. That's the play.
I don't want to give it all away right now, but yeah, that's a good chunk of it.
And how do you plan to fund that?
So we actually are pretty okay.
So you fund it yourself?
Yeah, so, you know, we've made money, and
no fancy offices now?
No, we have one decent office. We've just actually gotten Daftar Khan in Lahore as well. But
how big is your team?
About 20 people.
It's not bad.
Yeah, about 20 people. We'll be increasing probably a few more soon. But yeah, I mean, getting registered and set up and all abroad is expensive. You know, but the whole thing is, so we try and stay lean, and we try to not spend stupidly, and we try and have runway. Okay, because anything can happen at any moment. And so we want to be in that position, because raising capital is not guaranteed. We've never raised capital. We do plan on raising capital, but it needs to be smart capital, right? It needs to be strategic, and it needs to be worth it. And in the case that we don't, we still want to be able to go and do the things that we want to do. And I was actually having this argument yesterday with my mamus, and they were saying, pay yourself more. And I was like, no, I refuse to pay myself more. I can, you know, we all can, but it's like, don't want to. When we need it, we'll take it. But if I don't need it right now, then I want to prioritize putting that money back into the business and not missing the opportunity to 10x, 100x over the next few years.
And each of you is paid the same?
Yeah, we each pay the same. And, you know, it's just as an example, right? So let's suppose I spend that money on myself right now, and that means that I cannot expand globally unless I raise capital, but I don't end up raising capital. Then I miss out on that opportunity. And it's pretty guaranteed opportunity for us, because we have exclusive ticketing with our artists. Or I can push off paying myself for a bit and then do that. And if I raise capital, great. If I don't, I'm still going to do it, not miss that opportunity, then pay myself a year or two down the line. You know? So, yeah, we always just prioritized growth. And it's really amazing to see it come to fruition.
Amazing story, man. I appreciate you taking the time to share it with me. I think there's a lot of good learnings for anyone looking to start up and start out. And I think that, you know, for me, the biggest takeaway is staying true to the purpose, staying true to the mission, funding that mission, learning from your mistakes, and building a runway. You need to have a cash pool on the side, because you never know what's going to happen. And I think what you guys are doing for events, I think you hit it right. Make people aware of what's happening around them, because we're starved for entertainment. And only when people realize that there is entertainment and there is demand that starts swelling for this, will the right infrastructure come into place? Will the right kind of support from whatever the support needs to come from, government, private enterprise, whatever it is, will it come to place? But I think you guys have taken on a great initiative. Best of luck.
Thank you.
And, hopefully we hear about your big success in the next couple of years.
Inshallah,
and wherever we
soon,
can help play a role for you, we're happy to do that.
I will reach out.
Perfect. Thanks.
Thanks, man.
Thank you for
having me.
tuning to Digitales. Like, subscribe, comment, and see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.